Fort Bragg, California is a small beach town northwest of Sacramento. It has a kind of Stephen King feel to it. You know what I mean, that misty, almost eerie small harbor town. But it's beautiful and a huge tourist attraction. You get people from all over the US that travel here. My fiance and I decided to drive up here after I had to take some time off of work due to stress. It was a last-minute decision and we packed up our bags in less than 10 minutes, grabbed our dog and took off. If we wouldn't have had our dog with us, I'm pretty sure that I would have lost her. I guess this is where I tell the story, right? It's our second day here right now, and we are staying at a motel that overlooks the ocean. You can see the fog roll in during the early hours of the morning, and watch the fishing boats leave the harbor to go get their haul for the day. It really is a beautiful thing to see. We woke up early and I was craving, and I mean craving, eggs and bacon. After getting dressed and deciding what spot to stuff our faces at, we left for our morning adventure. So here's where I made my mistake. I was driving down the road and it looked like the stop that we crawled up to was a four-way stop sign. I guessed wrong, because when I pulled out and cut off a small Ford Ranger with a dinky trailer attached to it and two old men driving, I realized it was a little too late that I had cut them off. They threw up their hands and pointed at me, but Lily didn't even notice it. I threw my hands up in a, "Sorry, I'm just a dumb tourist" kind of way, and they just stared me down. It was a hillbilly standoff that George Strait would have been proud of. I didn't think much of it and kept driving down the foggy two-lane road to get breakfast. I didn't even think to say anything to her about it. I never thought that I would see them again, and I didn't want her to complain about me not knowing how to drive. I was wrong though. I was wrong, and I'll never forget what happened next. We got back to the motel after a not so great but overly expensive breakfast. We cuddled up and talked about our plans for the future and what we wanted to do in life. But midway through our conversation, she realized that we were out of dog food to feed Bruce. I agreed to going out to the cute but creepy market and grabbing a bag of goodies. I kissed her on the cheek and jumped in the Navy. We called our navigator Navy. I left and got about halfway to the store before I realized that I had forgotten my wallet on the nightstand. When I pulled back into the parking lot, I saw it. That same Ford Ranger with the janky trailer attached to it. The only difference was that Hank and Boomhauer weren't inside of it. I don't remember seeing them here last night, I thought. I walked up to our door while looking over my shoulder wondering, what are the chances these guys are staying here? And then not 2 seconds later, my heart started beating faster. Our motel door was open but barely cracked. It was open slightly to the point where you could see a sliver of light but nothing more. I slowly pushed it open and looked inside, but I didn't see anything. Lily and Bruce were both gone. It was like they were never even there. My heart started racing, and I dropped my keys on the floor and ran outside, heart pounding in my chest faster than a jackhammer in New York. I didn't see the creepy old guys from the Ford truck or Lily outside. I was becoming angry and frantic by this point. Come on, where did you guys go? I thought before the screaming inside my head was cut off by the sound of familiar barking. I heard Bruce barking and I ran. I ran faster than I ever have in my entire 28 years of life. I ran straight over to the front office where the sound was coming from. And that's when I saw her and our dog inside the office. She was crying, sitting on the floor sobbing uncontrollably, and his hair was standing straight up until he saw that it was me sprinting towards them. Lily got up and ran into my arms. Meanwhile, the clerk is on the phone and I'm wondering, what the heck happened in the 2 minutes that I was gone? This is what happened, told by her, and it makes my body run cold. It turns out as soon as I left, not 30 seconds went by and those inbred guys knocked on the door. Lily opened it up thinking that it was me forgetting my wallet, which I did, and they tried to force their way into the room saying, "You can thank your boy toy for what's coming to ya," while grabbing her and covering her mouth. But those guys didn't realize one thing, and that's that we had a dog in our back seat when I cut them off. Bruce jumped off the bed and didn't hesitate to bite the one grabbing her, and they kicked him and tried to shake him off, but he wouldn't let go. After being bitten, realizing that the noise would draw attention if they didn't leave, they ran off and Lily was able to sprint to the front office and wait for help while Bruce followed suit. I wasn't there and I couldn't protect her. If we would have found a dog sitter and our plans weren't last minute, she could be gone right now. But my dog was there and he did exactly what a good boy, no, the best boy would do. And for that, he truly is my best friend. If he wasn't there, what would have happened? Would she have been taken, killed, or all the above? The craziest thing is that they haven't been caught yet. We filed all the reports with the local sheriff. I told them what had happened earlier that morning, and the cop looked right at me and said, "You're lucky your dog was there. If he wasn't and they got in there with her, you could have been filing a different report right now." I got tears in my eyes at that. I looked over at Lily and Bruce and thanked God that I had rescued him from the pound, because in return, he rescued the love of my life when I couldn't. This happened a long time ago. I was around 5 or 6, but it comes up every once in a while at family gatherings, and though it isn't as bone-chilling as some of the stories on here, I figure that it fits well enough. For context, I have a very close extended family, as in a huge family that all lives within 30 minutes of each other. We all live in the suburbs of a large city, far enough away that it is generally considered a safe area with neighbors all knowing each other, and car doors are left unlocked in the driveway. When I was young, my grandma used to watch my cousin and I at the same age, and she had 2 dogs. Dog 1 was Benji, a sweet, lovable dog. Dog 2 was Cheyenne. She was nice enough, but we always preferred Benji as he was nicer, more playful, and just generally wanted to be around us more. We would always play in the backyard with each other, sometimes with supervision and sometimes not. It was a fenced-in yard, and like I said, a nice enough area. Nothing strange at all. Anyway, one day, we're playing outside as per usual. Benji is inside with Grandma. Cheyenne was outside but just laying away from us, as we played with our cars or whatever we were messing with that day. We didn't notice until he started talking, but once he speaks, we notice an older man, maybe 50 or something, trying to talk to us through the fence, no more than 20 feet away. He seems nice enough, but hey, I was young so I had no clue. We kind of walk over to him, but not very close, about 6 feet from the fence. He's talking to us about God knows what, and this whole time Cheyenne had started coming over by us and growling lowly. We didn't think much of it and kept talking. I can't remember what the subject of conversation was. All I know is that at one point he began to try to call us over to him, and to which we wouldn't. We knew that much at least. He was getting upset, and at that point he started to climb over the fence. I have never been so afraid of a dog in my life. Cheyenne starts going absolutely berserk, as in if he had gotten over the fence, I don't think Cheyenne would have let him leave the yard alive. He jumps back, and my grandma hears this happening, so she rushes out to the yard and sees the guy, us, and the dog going insane. She starts screaming like I have never heard her scream before, as he runs away and down the road. We ended up being rushed inside, where Grandma sat us down very nicely and explained the stranger danger thing again. My grandma had no idea who it was. It wasn't a neighbor. The whole time the rest of the day, Cheyenne would not leave our sides. I was always a little scared of Cheyenne after that. I know now that it wasn't fair to her. She was only protecting us. After that, I learned that I will always trust my dogs. We've had dogs as long as I can remember, and I will trust any of them over any person every time. I have no idea what he was planning on doing if he got in the yard, and Cheyenne hadn't been there. So mister, stay away. And I'm sorry for being cold to you, Cheyenne. Please rest in peace. This incident happened in the summer of 2015. I lived by myself in a nice house inside a small town. Low crime, but still the occasional shady guy. Anyway, I'd worked that day on a smoke break. I watched a dog get thrown from a moving vehicle. 4-lane city traffic during the start of rush hour. I ran out there to scoop the little guy up and booked it back to my workplace. He wasn't injured, amazingly. As an animal lover, I decided to take him home with me until I could figure out what to do with him. I have a large amount of cats, and I always have. This was my first experience with a dog that I was solely responsible for. Now this guy was very shy. Head hung, tail tucked, jumpy. Just looking at me like I was about to do something to him. I was clueless on the subject of dog personalities and tendencies. I just knew that they needed to be taken out frequently. His first night with me, we had been out about 15 times, as I didn't want him doing it in my house. I was having the final cigarette of the day on my porch around 10:30. The dog was on a lead, chilling under my chair as I smoked and poked about on Reddit. I see a man walking on the sidewalk that runs by my house. He kept glancing up at me before passing. Shortly after he passed my house, he stopped, turned on his heel and approached. "Hey, can you tell me where 302 Church Street is?" he asked. I told him that I would look it up on my phone, which of course was taking a minute to pull up. He explained that he didn't have a phone of his own and he was attempting to get to a friend's house, taking small steps towards me the entire time. Finally, the address I summoned came up. "Hey, it's exactly 2 blocks north of here, right on the southwest corner of the cross street," I told him, pointing in the direction. He kept his eyes locked on me, continuing to slowly move closer. The doggo starts growling very softly at this point. I had forgotten he was even there until now. "Mind if I take a look at the map?" He grinned sheepishly. "I'm bad with directions." I rose from my seat, pointing again. "It's truly just 2 blocks up this road. Just follow the road 2 blocks. The house will be on your left," making it very clear that I wasn't going to just hand him my phone. "Well, can I call them? I need to let them know that I'm coming," he said, still creeping closer, extending his hand. "No," I curtly replied. "How about text him?" Pushing forward still. "Dude, no." I started toward my door. Just let me see your phone." He was visibly becoming upset, clearly trying to contain it, and getting way too close to my porch. As a last-ditch effort of getting this dude to get away from me, I say, "You need to get the heck out of my yard. My dog is protective and he'll mess you up." Heck, I didn't know the first thing about this dog, let alone whether he had the capacity to mess someone up. I just hoped saying so would intimidate the pushy phone guy. Like I had said the magic words, the pupper springs into action. A la the wolf creature from the never-ending story, he emerges like a bullet from under the chair, growling and snarling, barking his little butt off. He jerks me near off the porch, trying to get at this guy. He sounded and acted like an 80-pound attack dog, not a 40-pound timid beagle mix. I was afraid. I didn't know if the pup would turn on me. As stated previously, at the time, I knew absolutely nothing about dogs. He backed his hindquarters into my legs, almost nudging me to the door, still carrying on. Eyes locked on Phone Dude and baring his teeth. Phone Dude holds up his hands and backs off, stammers something like, 2 blocks north, yeah, and begins walking that way. I go inside, cut off my lights, and I peek out the window at him. He glances at my house, assured that I'm inside, turns and begins walking the completely opposite direction that I pointed him in. Icing on the cake. He pulls a phone from his pocket and raises it to his ear to make a call. The dog is secured in his place as a member of my family that night. He is incredibly protective of me, and has frightened away another creep since this incident. He is attached at my hip, and has made it known that he is grateful to be in a safe, loving home, wherein he will never again become a projectile from a moving vehicle. His name is Hank, and I truly believe that night would have ended very poorly for me had he not been there. This happened a number of years ago, maybe 10. I used to live in a rather large house in the country. The nearest neighbor was about a quarter-mile away. This house was slightly on a hill, so the top of the driveway was at the top, and the house was at the bottom. We had a few very large pine trees at the base close to the house. They were so dense that you couldn't really see behind them from the top of the driveway. I remember that I was on my bike with my German Shepherd, Baron, R.I.P., in the driveway, and my dad was working on some gardening behind 2 of the large trees. At one point, I had rode to the top of the driveway to ride down the hill, and I saw a golden sedan. I don't remember the make, parked across the road with the front facing me. Inside, I saw 2 men, who were just staring at me. I didn't think anything of it at the time, and I rode down the hill carelessly. A few minutes later, the sedan slowly drove past the top of my driveway, and I saw it and again thought nothing of it. I was a very sheltered child, so much so that I didn't even know what kidnapping was, and if I did, I probably would have been more suspicious. I didn't see the car again for a few minutes, but it came back but the opposite direction, meaning that they had to have flipped a U-turn. This time, the passenger rolled down their window and yelled over to me, "Hey, want to come help us look for our dog? She's lost and only a puppy." However, my dad came out from behind the tree and told me to stay where I was. The men were startled and looked at my dad, 6'2" and pretty large, and simply said that they were looking for a lost dog. My dad asked what kind, and they went quiet, and one said, "Chihuahua." Now, I mentioned that we live in the country, which was also home to hawks, snakes, and coyotes, as well as these men weren't our neighbors. We knew everyone in the street and almost everyone in the neighborhood. The only people that we didn't know lived very far back, almost 5 miles away. There was no way a dog that small could get anywhere near us, and even if it did, it probably would have been eaten by another wild animal anyway. My dad got really close to the window and muttered something. I never really heard what it was, but the men drove off and I've never seen them again. My mom later sent an email to the neighborhood. No one owned a golden sedan or had a chihuahua that had gotten out. After the incident, my parents drilled stranger danger into my head, which has made me the cautious person that I am today. I don't know what had happened if my dad was not there. I love you and I miss you every day.